Atlanta didn't become the Black Mecca by accident. These 8 families built it, and their come-up stories are wilder than you'd think. First, a man born into slavery who walked 30 miles barefoot to freedom and became the city's first black millionaire. But that's nothing next to a rapper who got tired of the banks and just built his own. And at number 1, we have a billionaire who stood up at a college graduation and paid off every single student's debt on the spot. Let's begin with this crazy countdown. Number 8. The Herndon family. We're starting this list in the 1800s because the foundation of black wealth in Atlanta was poured by a man who began his life with nothing. And I mean nothing. Alonzo Herndon was born into slavery in 1858 in Social Circle, Georgia. When freedom finally came, he reportedly walked 30 miles, barefoot, to start a life that was actually his own. Sit with that image for a second, because everything that follows grew out of it. So how does a man born enslaved become Atlanta's first black millionaire? It started in a barber's chair. Herndon opened barbershops around the city, and they weren't little corner shops. They were upscale, elegant operations serving Atlanta's wealthiest white clientele, and the money rolled in. But here's the move that separated him from everybody else. He didn't spend it. He took every dollar those barbershops earned and funneled it into real estate and then into the one industry that mattered most: insurance. Because at the time, mainstream banks and insurers flat out refused to serve black families. Not made it hard, refused entirely. So in 1905, Herndon built his own, founding what would become the Atlanta Life Insurance Company. And this was so much bigger than a business. His policies gave black families the ability to borrow, to save, and to actually pass wealth down to their kids, which was a radical, almost revolutionary idea in Jim Crow, Georgia. By pooling the community's money, Atlanta Life quietly became an engine, funding mortgages, business loans, and a future for people the entire system had locked out. His 15-room Beaux-Arts mansion on Diamond Hill still stands today as a National Historic Landmark. And back then it was a statement in itself, a monument that screamed, "Black wealth exists," in an era deliberately built to erase it. But his real monument is the city itself. Every single time somebody calls Atlanta the Black Mecca, that root system traces straight back to Alonzo Herndon. He wasn't flashy, and he didn't leave behind yachts or towers with his name on them. He left something bigger, one of the first real proofs that black wealth could be structured, generational, and impossible to knock down. He built the financial floor that everybody else on this list is standing on. Now, Herndon built a bank because the system refused to serve his people. Fast forward 100 years, and our next guy looked at that same broken system and did the exact same thing, except he was already famous for something else entirely. Number 7. Killer Mike and Greenwood. Every rapper in the world talks about power. Killer Mike went out and actually built some, and not in the way you'd expect. You might know Michael Render as one half of the explosive rap duo Run the Jewels, or from his Grammy wins, or from his politically charged verses that never pull a punch. But in 2020, he did something that had nothing to do with a microphone. Alongside civil rights icon Andrew Young and tech entrepreneur Ryan Glover, he launched Greenwood, a digital bank built specifically for Black and Latino communities who'd spent generations getting quietly shut out of mainstream finance. And here's the part that tells you he was serious. This wasn't some celebrity vanity project with a famous face slapped on a logo. Within weeks of the announcement, Greenwood pulled in hundreds of thousands of signups, making it one of the fastest-growing fintech launches of its moment. Investors came flooding in. Suddenly, a man who built his name on protest music was sitting across the table from serious Wall Street players, not as entertainment, but as an equal. But the name is where it gets powerful. Greenwood is a direct tribute to the Greenwood district in Tulsa, better known as Black Wall Street, the thriving black community that was burned to the ground in the 1921 massacre. So when Killer Mike named his bank Greenwood, he wasn't just picking a word that sounded nice. He was staging a resurrection. His whole pitch was simple. If the old system refuses to serve us, then we'll use technology to build what they wouldn't. Now, has it been all smooth sailing? Not exactly. Greenwood has had to prove it can actually scale like a real bank, and not just live off a great headline. And plenty of critics doubted whether a rapper-led fintech could genuinely go toe-to-toe with the banking giants. Fair questions. But think about who else could pull a stunt like this off. Who else could take a stage name like Killer Mike and turn it into a symbol of generational wealth building? That's not a contradiction. In Atlanta, that's just evolution. But while Killer Mike flipped a rap career into a bank, this is how our next mogul flipped a cable TV fortune into something you'd never see coming: a 5-star luxury resort empire. Number 6. The Johnson family, Sheila Johnson. Here's a truth almost nobody lives out. Sometimes the sequel is better than the original, and Sheila Johnson's sequel is one for the history books. Speaking of the rare sequel that quietly outshines the original, that is what pulled someone on our team to the Pulse R8 Smart Ring. It tracks your heart rate, your sleep, and your workout straight from your finger. A week on a single charge, 100 days with the case, and it's fully waterproof. The part that got us was the price. Under $40, a fraction of what the big-name rings cost because it comes direct instead of through the retailers that mark everything up. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Now, back to the surprising second chapter nobody expected. Most people know her as the co-founder of BET, Black Entertainment Television, which she launched with her then-husband back in 1980. That network became a full-blown cultural institution, and when it sold to Viacom in 2001 for $3 billion, it made the Johnsons America's first black billionaires. That alone would be enough for most people to coast on for the rest of their lives. Sheila did the opposite. After her divorce, she walked away from the media world entirely and pivoted into a lane where, at the very top, there were almost no black women anywhere in sight: luxury hospitality. She founded Salamander Hotels and Resorts, and today it runs high-end properties across Virginia, Florida, Washington, D.C., and beyond. We're talking golf courses, world-class spas, and 5-star dining that competes head-to-head with the Four Seasons and the Ritz-Carlton. The strategy was razor-sharp. Media brands fade, but a well-placed luxury resort throws off steady cash flow and appreciates in value for decades. And then there's the sports flex, which is genuinely wild. Sheila Johnson once held ownership stakes in the Washington Wizards, the Capitals, and the Mystics all at the same time, making her the first black woman ever to own pieces of 3 major professional sports teams simultaneously. Industry insiders put her personal net worth in the high hundreds of millions, and depending on the year, Forbes has flirted with putting her back over that billionaire line. And the giving isn't a footnote for her. It's baked into how she operates, with her money and her time going into arts boards, women's leadership programs, and education across the country. She took Black entertainment and quietly rebranded her whole life as Black excellence, stamped across luxury properties that will outlast cable TV, reality shows, and music catalogs combined. Now, Sheila turned TV money into hotels you can walk into. Our next billionaire built his entire fortune on something you probably clicked this week without thinking twice about it. Number 5. The Awatona family, Tope Awatona. Everybody else on this list built their money on records, real estate, or restaurant tables. Tope Awatona built his on calendars. Yeah, calendars. And it made him a billionaire. His story starts in Lagos, Nigeria, where he was born before splitting his upbringing between there and the United States. And it did not come easy. Awatona burned through several failed startups first, sinking his own savings into ideas that went nowhere. But he kept going until he landed on one brutally simple observation. Scheduling a meeting is one of the most annoying, soul-draining rituals in all of modern work life. That endless email chain of, does Tuesday work for you or maybe Thursday? He built the tool that kills it. That tool is Calendly, and it is beautifully, almost stupidly simple. You send someone a link, they pick a time, done. No back and forth. Millions of people now use it every single day. And after a major funding round in 2021 valued the company at roughly $3 billion, Awatona's stake pushed him firmly into billionaire territory, with Forbes clocking him around $1.4 billion. The genius underneath it is textbook software money, recurring subscriptions that renew automatically, deep hooks into Google, Outlook, and Slack, and founder equity that just keeps compounding. But here's the part that makes him an Atlanta story. When his company blew up, he didn't pack up for Silicon Valley like the playbook says you're supposed to. He built it in Georgia, Lagos to Marietta to Buckhead. He kept the headquarters, the high-paying jobs, and the investment right there at home, proving Atlanta can grow a world-class tech company without ever asking the Valley for permission. He fixed the one thing every single professional on Earth hates and then sold that fix to the whole world. Now, Awatona solved a problem nobody could stop complaining about. Our next name didn't just solve a problem. He turned the concert stage itself into an entire business machine. Number 4. The Usher family. Usher Raymond. Picture selling tens of millions of records, selling out arenas across the planet, landing a Las Vegas residency that prints money like a mint, and still having the vision to build ownership on top of all of it. That's Usher's actual financial reality, and it's a lot more sophisticated than people give him credit for. Yes, Usher is one of the best-selling artists of all time. But the album sales aren't the interesting part of his wealth. The interesting part is the stack he built on top of them. Think about that Vegas residency for a second. It works less like a concert and more like an annuity, guaranteed high-margin, repeatable income that shows up on a schedule without the chaos and cost of dragging a full tour around the world. Then layer on publishing royalties that pay out for decades, brand partnerships, and a whole portfolio of strategic investments. Conservative estimates put his net worth somewhere around $150 to $200 million. And honestly, that number probably undersells what he's really built. Here's the move most people miss. Usher figured out early that influence is a currency, and he started trading it for ownership. Production companies, development deals for the next generation of artists, music business investments that deliberately keep creative jobs and money rooted in Atlanta instead of just passing through it. He came up as a breakout kid at Layface Records and then evolved into something much rarer, an owner-operator who understood that a one-time check is nice, but recurring revenue is what builds a dynasty. Atlanta gave Usher his voice. He turned around and gave the city back something far more durable. Now, Usher built a machine around his own stage. Our next guy took over the whole movie theater, went multi-platinum, and then quietly became one of the most underrated businessmen the city has ever produced. Number 3. The Ludacris family. Christopher Bridges. Atlanta hip-hop has minted a lot of millionaires, but Ludacris might just be the smoothest operator of them all and the most quietly brilliant businessman in the bunch. He started out as Chris Lova Lova, a local radio DJ with a gift for twisting words, before dropping albums that went multi-platinum in the early 2000s. Tracks like Stand Up and Move didn't just take over the clubs, they made him a household name across the entire globe. But while most rappers were still trying to figure out how to land a single endorsement deal, Ludacris was already stepping into a completely different arena. Hollywood came knocking, and his role as Tej in the Fast and Furious movies snowballed into a spot in one of the highest-grossing film franchises in cinema history. All of a sudden, he wasn't just cashing tour checks, he was cashing blockbuster ones. Estimates land his net worth somewhere between $30 and $50 million. And like any real ATL boss, he kept the money close to home. Restaurants, tech startup investments, real estate. Ludacris took his music fame and turned it into seed capital for businesses that feed right back into the city's economy. Then there's his foundation, which has poured millions into youth programs, scholarships, and arts education all over Atlanta. For a guy who built his whole career on clever punchlines, the serious legacy work is no joke at all. And here's the little twist the internet forgets. A whole generation of kids knows Ludacris from Fast and Furious stunts, not the music that built his fortune in the first place. And that's kind of the entire point. Atlanta wealth was never built on one hustle. It's built on stacking hustle on top of hustle until you've made something that outlives any single wave. Now, everyone we've talked about so far built impressive fortunes, but the last two names on this list didn't just get rich. They built empires so large they physically reshaped the city. Starting with a man who decided that if Hollywood wouldn't come to Atlanta, he'd just build his own. Number 2. The Perry family. Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry didn't build a career. He built infrastructure, and those are two completely different things. It started with one-man stage plays touring the black church circuit, the kind of grassroots grind most people would never associate with a billion-dollar fortune. But step by deliberate step, Perry turned it into one of the smartest media empires in American history, and it all ran on one radical, stubborn idea. Own your content, own your studio, and never let anyone else control your future. Most creators spend their whole lives renting. Perry decided to own. So he built Tyler Perry Studios, which now sits on roughly 330 acres of a former military base in southwest Atlanta. And this is not some modest operation. We're talking multiple sound stages, backlots, and permanent standing sets so detailed that a production can shoot a fake New York street or a full courthouse without ever leaving the property. Forbes puts his net worth at around $1.4 billion. But the number isn't even the real story. The real story is the double play, because Perry owns both the content library and the physical place where content gets made. Here's why that's so clever. Owning his film and TV library means decades of licensing deals and streaming money rolling in. But owning the studio means every outside production that wants to film there. The Marvel movies, the big streaming series, the major features has to come to his stages, in his city. And every single one of those shoots pumps money into Atlanta, into the hotels, the caterers, the carpenters, the crews. Perry didn't just build himself a fortune. He seeded an entire film industry that turned Atlanta into a legitimate rival to Hollywood, and he's created a whole lot of black millionaires doing it. That's what building a city actually looks like. Now, Perry built the physical stage that Atlanta's film industry runs on, but the man at number one operates on a scale that makes even a 300-acre studio look modest. And he used his fortune to do something that left an entire graduating class in tears. Number 1. Robert F. Smith, the Smith family. And here he is, sitting at the very top, the richest of them all by a massive margin. Robert F. Smith is the founder and chairman of Vista Equity Partners. And if that name doesn't mean much to you, here's all you need to know. Vista buys up enterprise software companies, sharpens them with ruthless operational discipline, and sells them for enormous profits. That's the machine. And it's one of the most effective wealth-building machines in the entire history of private equity. Forbes consistently places Smith's net worth north of $10 billion, which means he's not just leading this list, he's lapping it several times over. But the money isn't what makes Robert Smith different from every other billionaire with a private jet. What makes him different is what he did in 2019 at Morehouse College's graduation ceremony. Standing in front of the entire graduating class, Smith announced that he was going to pay off all of their student loan debt. Not some of it. Not a scholarship fund for a lucky few. All of it, for every single graduate, wiped out in one sentence. Imagine sitting in that crowd, bracing for decades of loan payments, and a man erases it in real time. That single moment reframed what billionaire giving could even look like. And it wasn't a one-off headline grab. Smith has funneled hundreds of millions into museums, research institutions, and educational programs all over the country, Atlanta very much included. His whole approach treats capital as a tool to change who gets access, not just a scoreboard for piling up more. Now, is his world complicated? Sure. Private equity draws real debates about power and wealth concentration, and Smith's business sits right in the middle of them, which is part of what makes him a genuinely fascinating figure rather than a simple one. But when you stack it all together, the $10 billion fortune, the Morehouse moment, the institutional giving that rewrote a generation's future in a single afternoon, Robert F. Smith isn't just the richest name on this list. He's exactly what the Black Mecca was always supposed to produce. So there you have it. 8 families, 8 completely different blueprints, but one shared thread running through every single one of them. From Alonzo Herndon building a bank because the system refused his people, to Tyler Perry building a studio that turned Atlanta into a film capital, to Robert Smith erasing a generation's debt in a single afternoon, none of these people just chased a check. They built institutions, and then they reached back and pulled their community up with them. So which one hit you the hardest? Drop your pick in the comments, and if you made it all the way here with us, hit that like button and subscribe to Black Status. We'll see you on the next one.